Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats podcast episode number 138. I am your host today, Dan Matson, aka Wooden Boat Dan, and this podcast is all about celebrating the art, craft, history, tradition, and romance of wooden vessels around the globe. Now, in case you're wondering why my audio quality is not its usual high standard today, although I think it's still a good standard, it's because I am in the car right now, and tomorrow's Thursday. I'm supposed to publish my podcast, which I will do, and I just want to get this done so when I get home I can start doing my editing and putting everything together and writing the show notes and all that. And so that's why it's a little bit different sound this week, but next week, or in 2 weeks, should be back to the normal format. Okay, so this week's featured segment is an interview I did with Marty Loken in July at the Port Townsend Pocket Yachters Palooza. Marty heads up that organization. He's been heavily involved in the wooden boat world for quite a few years, and so Marty and I sat down, which we typically, this is the third Palooza they've had, third annual. Each of the previous Paloozas we've sat down and talked about the boats that are at the Palooza, the fun things that are coming up, and we also talked about what some of the advantages are of small boats and why there's kind of a grassroots movement towards small boats. Yeah, it's a really fun interview. Marty's a very knowledgeable guy and does great on the recording, so I would encourage you to stick around for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, as far as what's happening with me the last couple of weeks, more of the same, working on my door, getting her ready to sell. I think I mentioned, I know I mentioned 2 weeks ago that I've been using Epiphane's 1-part polyurethane marine paint for the hull, and I'm loving the paint. It's coming out really nice, and so I'm working on that. Now I'm working on painting the interior of the boat, which I hadn't planned on doing that originally. I was just going to touch it up, but it really needs it, and the rest of the boat looks so nice that I decided to go ahead and do that. So I'm cranking on the boat and doing some little tweaks, like adding some fillets to the transom knees, because there's a little stress on the Akumi plywood there. And I got my motor tuned up and putting a new plate on the transom for the outboard and things like that. So the boat's coming along. I love doing it. It is a reminder that it takes a lot of time to do a good job on stuff. So that's what I've been working on. I'm pretty excited to get this boat done and sold so I can start work on finishing the scamp that I purchased last year that's partially complete. I have not been getting out on the water, but today I did have a fun day in Port Townsend. I spent the day over there, interviewed Howard Rice during the scamp camp, and I also took a video of them steaming some yellow cedar and pulling these 12, they're probably 14 footers, pulling them out of this big steam box and putting them on the scamp as the carlins and the gunnels and clamping them in place. I took some video of that, so I'll either post that to the website or to my YouTube channel, which is Wooden Boat Dan, so check that out. And so I had a great time. I went to the Northwest School of Wooden Boat Building, saw some people there I hadn't seen for a while, which is really fun. Christina and Corey, who I've interviewed before. And it was just overall a very fun day. The weather was awesome. I love being in Port Townsend. I wouldn't mind living there sometime, but don't know if that's going to happen. but it sure is fun to go over there and visit and have a good time. If you'd like to sign up for my newsletter, it is a free newsletter by email. You can go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe and give me your name and email address, and I'll put you on the list to receive that. It's been a little sporadic this year. It's been about every couple months. But I share some fun resources and tips and tricks and kind of let people know what I'm up to. Also, if you're interested in purchasing my ebook, I wrote a book last year called Get in the Wooden Boat Game, a guide for building your first boat. And if you're getting ready to build your first boat and you've got questions about things like, should I build it from a kit or from scratch, and how big a boat should I build, and what's it going to cost, how long is it going to take, those are some of the things I address in the book. You can buy it from my website by going to hookedonwoodenboats.com/ebook1, the number 1, or you can buy the Kindle version on Amazon. If you go to the Kindle store on Amazon and just put in there wooden boat game or building your first wooden boat, you'll pull up there, and it's $5.99 for the Kindle version. So appreciate your support on that. Okay, we're going to move on to the interview with Marty Loken, and this was at the Pocket Yacht Palooza 2014. So take it away, Marty. Okay, it's July 19th, 2014. I am sitting with Marty Loken at the Northwest Maritime Center. Marty, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
We're at the 3rd Annual Palooza, which is awesome, Marty. Congratulations.
Thank you. We didn't know when we were involved in starting this 3 years ago that there would even be a second one, for sure. But it's been a relative hit, I guess, in the small boat community. And despite the weather, we have a pretty good turnout of boats and a big turnout of people today. Bigger than ever, I think, in terms of public attendance.
Yeah. How many boats are here today, Marty?
I haven't even counted yet. We had 70 registered in our very informal registration process.
Yeah.
I know of at least 5 who canceled because they were planning to sail across the straits to get here from the San Juans.
Oh.
And they were scared off by the gale warnings. So, I don't know, we probably have 60 or so.
Yeah, that's a lot.
As long as you fill the commons here with the boats on trailers, you have a boat show. So it seems to be working for everyone.
Yeah. So for our listeners, give us some highlights of some of the really unique boats here this year, Marty.
Every year it's a different motley mix, but I'm really glad to see more pocket cruising sailboats, some models we haven't seen before, like the Montgomery 15, which is a very popular boat, but somehow we've never had one here at the Palooza before. But we have old traditional dories. We have a lot of lapstrake pulling boats and little double enders like yours that are really popular. We have I think more rowing boats, perhaps. I haven't counted, but it's just a great mix of wooden boats, early fiberglass boats, a few contemporary glass
boats. Is he proselytizing?
And,
no, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
He should.
The usual wide variety of small boats, all the way from this little boat that Tug Boosie's son put together, a target raft, to
target
the ooze goose and the little
puddle duck
racer, and
you find those that ilk more in the coots than in Oregon.
Right.
They're kind of the ones that like to play with the unique and interesting.
Yeah.
So it's been a great a great variety, and we have no control over which boats will be here or what designs. We're not selecting boats at all, and it's delightful to me to see a lot of sort of daily driver user boats that are not pristine or perfectly finished or refinished. That are just plain good user boats at that level of finish. I think that sort of fits the general sentiment of our group of pocket yachters.
It's definitely an informal group that likes to have fun and get together. And
it's more about interesting boat designs and getting on the water and actually using boats rather than worrying about how many coats of varnish we have.
I got the first scratches on my canoe this year, so I'm kind of over that.
Oh, good. It's really great to get over that because
it just killed me. But
how can you possibly enjoy a boat that you're afraid to scratch?
When I saw my niece's husband took it out for a row, and I came back and he had it sitting on the rock beach, and it's like, okay, I'm over it.
Yeah.
I'm good to go. Thank you for doing that. So somebody had to do it, and it might as well have been a relative, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I apologize.
So you've got two boats here, Marty. Tell us about your boats.
One of them is this little pocket cruising power boat. It's a 16-foot Paulsbo boat, built in 1946 as an open salmon fishing boat. Years ago, I was asked by a customer to design and build a cabin on this open hull, which would make it look like a miniature salmon trawler, so that's the way it's configured now. It has a little 8-horse outboard in a well, and it's sort of a solo pocket cruiser that I really enjoy. And the second boat is also 16 feet, and it's a Danica, one of 25 built in British Columbia in the 70s and 80s by a gentleman who still lives on Gabriola Island. And the Danica is a double-ended sailboat that is designed directly after a 120-year-old Danish wooden fishing boat. I've always admired the Danish double-ender designs, and so we ended up with the Danica 16 for solo pocket cruising and a Hallman 20 double-ended Danish inspired cruiser when my wife wants to go along. That's a much more comfortable boat to cruise in than the little Danica.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous little boat.
But, the Danica was sort of a typical 3-week quickie restoration, paint just brushed on, and it'll be a user boat that I'll enjoy sailing probably for several years. Very seaworthy. The first Danica built by Peter Hahn was sailed by Peter to Hawaii, which establishes their seaworthiness.
That little 16-foot boat?
That same boat, yeah.
Wow.
So they're very stable and heavily ballasted for their size.
With a fixed keel with
ballast. It has a deep keel.
Really?
A lot of ballast down low, and I will hopefully be able to sail the boat for the very first time tomorrow.
Cool. Yeah. So there was only 25 built. That surprises me because there was obviously a mold made, right?
Yes, the molds may still be around from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But he just built 25 and moved on to something else.
Yeah. Because you had another Danish-designed double-ender lapstrake boat.
Yes. Scud was built by George Calkins.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
On Marrowstone Island, and I love Scud, but it was a completely open boat, and I really love camp cruising where you have some sort of shelter to retreat into. So the Danica is virtually the same hull design as the wooden lapstrake boat, and just has actual accommodations.
Yeah. Did you sell Scud, Marty?
I sold Scud and used the proceeds to buy the two Danish, other Danish design sailboats.
And what happened to your raised deck sloop that you were working on a couple of years ago?
I let that go down the road to Tom Gale, who I just saw walking by, and Tom's going to restore the boat.
Oh, really? Okay.
It wasn't a trailer boat.
Oh.
And the older I get, the smaller my boats become. And I'm really committed at this point to nothing but trailerable boats.
Yeah, right.
I love being able to wake up and decide to go boating in South Sound or the Lower Columbia River or Desolation Sound and pull a trailer close to the destination and be there that afternoon on the water, within striking distance of a place like Desolation Sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you're not on a trailer, you're paying moorage, and you're buying insurance, and
you're doing bottom every couple of years.
You're stuck with haul out fees and day rates at the haul out yard, and it's just drags you into the cycle of expense that bigger boats require.
Yeah. You wrote a really good article last year, Marty, for the festival's program about small boats. Could you just hit some of the highlights for our listeners on that? That was a very fascinating article.
Well, I think the general theme was that small boats are growing in popularity again for many reasons. One of them, for a lot of us who are older, is that we grew up with small boats. We only knew small boats as kids. Our first rowing or sailing or motoring experiences were with a little outboard fishing boat or an El Toro pram or a simple little flat-bottomed skiff to row. And then as we went through into middle age, we developed two-foot-itis and upsized our boats until we couldn't afford them anymore. And then when we got older, we finally got smarter and realized that the most fun we had ever had in boating was with small boats. And so we started reversing the two-foot-itis in the other direction and building, restoring, or just buying smaller boats that make so much more sense financially. I mean, I have a T-shirt I started wearing that says, when I got into boating, I was absolutely penniless, and ... I still have most of it today, or words to that effect. So, you grow through this arc, of boat building or boat buying and use, and you enjoy the bigger boat when you have a family and kids, and then when things simplify a little bit more in the older years, you remember how great it was to just be close to the water, rowing, sailing, paddling, or motoring, but really be in the water and close to it rather than driving at the nautical equivalent of a Kenworth around. So money, affordability is really important, I think, for a lot of us here, but just the fun of using smaller boats that are less complex, don't have systems, are easier to maintain, and are transportable. They're on trailers, and you can go anywhere you want with them.
The convenience factor is
huge.
huge.
It's convenient. They're just more sensible. All around. And a lot of the designs shown here at the Pocket Yacht Palooza are incredibly seaworthy. I mean, for my little Danica 16 to have been sailed to Hawaii it's quite a testament to the seaworthiness of some of these smaller boats. And over the last few years, Scamp is an 11-foot, 11-inch sailboat designed by John Welsford that has become a big hit because it's so darned seaworthy and functional. It's definitely function over form for a lot of people who look at Scamp. Where's the bow? Did somebody chop it off?
A toy boat?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pram style hull, and it's a love it or hate it design. But once people sail one of those funny looking little boats, it's love at first sight, and so it's definitely a focus on function, and it functions brilliantly. So there are some unusual boats here. We're going to start building on Monday a whole new class of boat. At least that's the way I look at it, which is the Colin Angus designed row cruiser. And row cruiser is what we're calling it. And it's an 18.5-foot sliding seat rowing boat that will be as fast as most any sea kayak. Will give you the full body exercise you get with rowing, and has overnight accommodations under the foredeck. So it opens up a whole new world for camp cruising, where you can get this great form of exercise when you're rowing to your destination, and then you just drop a very small anchor in this quiet cove, and rather than having to go ashore and drag your boat up a beach and fight the mosquitoes while you're putting a tent up, you just open the foredeck companionway hatch and slip into a very comfortable little berth under the foredeck of this rowing boat. So I think it will appeal to a lot of people who are sea kayaking today, and or rowing completely open boats today, because very few small rowboats are comfortable sleepaboards, without putting together some sort of boom tent or other temporary shelter.
So what design is this boat, Marty?
It's similar to Colin Angus's 18-foot expedition rowboat that he rowed around Vancouver Island, and the expedition was also the boat that he and his wife Julie rowed when they made the trip from Scotland, Colin's homeland, to Julie's sort of ancestral homeland, which was Syria. And they bicycled and rowed these 18-foot boats overland, and dragging them on little trailers overland with their bicycles. And then when they'd hit water, they would pack the bicycles up in little bundles underneath the deck of the rowing boat, and then row down the canals of Europe and rivers and across the lakes. And they worked their way from Scotland to Syria a very unusual route. Nobody's probably ever done that one before. With this lightweight stitch and glue marine plywood sliding seat rowboat, and the expedition, I think, sort of inspired the idea for the row cruiser, which has a little more volume, a little more room under the foredeck to actually sleep in the little cabin.
Was there an article about them in Wooden Boat Magazine a couple of years ago, or it seems like I've seen something about them?
Probably.
Maybe I saw a YouTube video, or I don't know. I saw something about that.
Their expedition from Scotland to Syria was covered in their own book, and called Road Trip, ROWED. Great book about their travels, and then Colin rowed that same boat around Vancouver Island in 15 days and some hours, breaking a long-standing record set by a sea kayaker, or a number of sea kayakers.
Wow.
And so he started to establish with that trip around Vancouver Island that the rowboats could be just as fast and efficient in very rough conditions as sea kayaks. So the row cruiser will be extremely seaworthy, dry. It has a small cockpit where your sliding seat sits, and watertight foredeck and aft deck.
Wow, so you're going to build one of these?
I'm building one starting Monday, and it'll be displayed at the Wooden Boat Festival in September.
Wow.
And this is the first boat that will have been built from the kit that is now being offered by Small Craft Advisor magazine.
Oh, really? They're offering that kit?
Well, yeah, it will. As soon as I finish building this prototype kit for boat, that will sort of prove out the kit parts and how they fit together, and I know they'll fit brilliantly.
Wow.
And at that point, we'll be ready to ship kits to people who want them. And February 16 to 22 of next year, right here at the Northwest Maritime Center, we'll have a row cruiser workshop where people will be able to build their own row cruiser kit in the Maritime Center boat shop in a class that we'll be conducting.
Wow, this is exciting stuff, Marty.
Yeah, Colin will come down from Victoria and get everybody charged up, sort of the way Howard Rice and John Welsford have excited the crowds over the Scamp design.
Yeah.
And then Colin will be able to step away, and I'll bore them to tears for the rest of the week building the boats.
So you're going to be teaching here?
Yeah.
Teaching the build. Is that going to be a stitch and glue design?
Yes.
Stitch and glue, and what's the beam on that boat?
It's about 3 feet.
Okay. So it's a fairly narrow boat for 18 feet.
Yeah.
But not as narrow as a scull or something like that.
Oh, no. It's much more stable than a rowing shell.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with those at all.
Yeah.
But it will be a pretty slippery hull in terms of its waterline beam and beam to length ratio. Colin is displaying a rowing boat here at the Palooza today, whose hull design is very similar to the row cruiser, but smaller in volume.
Yeah. How many panels will that boat have on each side?
I think, let's see, the bottom is just a single panel, and then there are 3 side panels.
Is it 6mm plywood?
6mm.
Okume, probably?
With 4mm Okume decks, but most of the boat is 6mm. It has watertight bulkheads, but you can open the foredeck up with a sliding hatch and a splashboard arrangement so that you can get in and out of the sleeping quarters quickly and easily, and it will have a couple different splashboards an extra splashboard that you carry that's ventilated, so that you have rain protection when you're down in the cabin, but you still have ventilation. So that you're not developing condensation inside the sort of sleeping compartment.
Wow.
And I'm going to rig my own row cruiser with one of the very affordable little video cameras pointing forward with a monitor that I'm staring at in the cockpit, so that I don't have to use rear view mirrors or bicycling mirrors in order to see where I'm going.
You're going to use a camera, huh?
Yeah. They sell these automotive backup cameras now that are very small and cylindrical.
Yeah.
You can buy one for $30 and hook it up to your iPad.
Really?
And and have a live view of everything ahead while you're rowing. And rowing backwards is the one thing about rowing that has, I think, bothered a lot of people who are tired of craning their necks to see where they are.
Yeah, right.
And mirrors can work fine too, but I'm interested in playing around with technology a little bit to not only have use navigation software. I use Navionics on my iPad Mini, and it works brilliantly. But you can also have a split screen where you have a view of the actual scene ahead of you,
next
as
to your
well
navigation.
as your Navionics chart of exactly where you are and how deep it is and everything else.
Wow, Marty. So this boat you're going to start next week, is it going to be your personal boat then?
Yes.
Okay.
I love rowing, and I'm excited about going out and camp cruising with this whole new type of rowboat.
So we'll have one rowing station in the boat
with
a sliding seat, but you'll be able to take a passenger with you, or not?
Yes. 2 people could go cruising together, with one of them resting under the foredeck, sleeping or just relaxing, while the other one rows, and then you can switch off. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the row cruisers is used next June for the race to Alaska, which the Maritime Center is organizing.
Wow.
And someone like Colin Angus could team up with another rower, and they could go 24/7 rowing, resting, eating, and never stop between Port Townsend and Ketchikan.
How much will that boat weigh, do you think, Marty?
150 pounds.
150 pounds. So is this you're building a boat that's a new design, or it's an existing boat that Colin has?
He designed it in 2011, but it was never developed as a product, as a kit.
As a kit, yeah.
Until literally this month.
Wow.
So with a little urging, we got Colin to speed up the final tweaking of the design so that it could be converted into a cutting file that a CNC cutting company could work with, and so we'll be using Turnpoint Design here in Port Townsend to cut all of the kit parts and box them up for shipping.
Will be puzzle joints for the set of scarves.
Puzzle joints. It should go together really well, and these puzzle joints are very strong. It's a lot better than the old-fashioned butt joint, or some of the other kinds of scarves. I think so. It'll be a.
Sounds like
and it's also a very attractive boat.
Yeah.
You'll see ours at the festival.
What size oars will you use? Or are they called sweeps, or are they oars in that boat?
Well, I think we've all sort of settled down to calling them oars. I mean, in the rowing world, the competitive rowing world, they would probably shriek if we called them oars instead of sweeps or sculls.
Yeah.
But I think in our ordinary small boat world, we're all happy with oars.
Yeah. What length do you think they'll be?
9.5.
9.5. Will there be outboard mounts for the oars?
Yes, homemade wooden outriggers to a pattern that's established.
Yeah.
And very strong, light outriggers, bolted in place. I'd say pretty unbreakable.
Yeah.
Because Colin and Julie gave them a real test between Scotland and Syria.
Yeah.
And Colin, of course, used that same pattern of outrigger going around Vancouver Island.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's awesome. I had no idea this was going on. That's why I come to Port Townsend to find out the news.
Well, you do a great job of keeping up with things, but a lot of the details about the row cruiser have not been announced until right now. So it's not like you've missed out on a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Marty. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, except that once people have row cruisers, just to complete that subject, we're also going to have row cruiser sort of escapes where a bunch of people rowing different small boats go camp cruising together with Colin Angus to enjoy using their row cruisers or any other rowing boat they want to take, but to learn some of the tricks and not secrets, but some of the little tips that Colin and Julie have accumulated over years of rowing all over the world. But rowing with Colin and Julie on a camp cruise, I think will be nothing but fun and very fascinating in terms of the information. So we're looking forward to doing that next summer.
Cool. Very good. Well, thanks again for your time, Marty. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Marty, thanks for doing that interview. It's always fun to chat and talk about boats and small boats and what's happening in Port Townsend, and pretty excited to talk about the new boat that you're building, the rowing cruiser, and what Colin Angus is up to and all that fun stuff. So thanks a lot, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at the festival in Port Townsend. Other than that, folks, if you'd like to connect with me, you can do so by email, dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com. You can find me on Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and Facebook. If you look for Wooden Boat Dan there, you'll find me. And if you have questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Also, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, and you can leave a review there, which I'd appreciate it. If you enjoy the podcast, if you'd leave a review for the podcast, that'll bring me up in the rankings, which always is a good thing. So anyway, I hope you have a great week, that you're getting out on the water. If you haven't built a wooden boat yet, it's time to get your feet wet and build one. Have a great week. God bless. Wooden Boat Dan, over and out. We'll talk again in 2 weeks. See ya.